Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Anticlimax, where we discuss various series and just go through it. I'm SeptumSin, your main host, with Kotobuki Jake and Brittany, or I don't know, from Embryo Arts. Actually, our usual host, except for Roger, who the subject matter of this was distasteful for. So we shall move on, and this is the last of Jacob's quarter of the year, and you're ending us out on something interesting. Tell us about it.
Okay. Well, we're looking at a 2011 series, a short series that was a what am I trying to say? A cooperative piece between Madhouse, Sony Japan, and Marvel of the X-Men. They did the 4 Marvel series anime style: Iron Man, Blade, X-Men, and Wolverine. And we're doing the one directed by Fuminari Kizaki, story by Warren Ellis. Music mainly by Tetsuya Takahashi, as well as Reiji Kitazato. Interesting take on the X-Men. I thought it would be an interesting. It's a shame that Roger bowed out. I intentionally was trying to hit some very different corners of the anime world.
Truly is
3. But anyway, let's go ahead and start. We'll start with you, Brittany. Is this your first time with this series, and what is your impressions?
No, and I remember canceling out the series when it was airing because it was just a cash grab. That's all this anime is.
As opposed to 50 to 80% of the anime out there?
Well, at least the anime follow a plot and develop characters. This just kind of said, hey, do you know the X-Men? Here's the story. Oh, you know all the villains they fight? We're going to give you the B-list. Or worse, the C-list villains.
Hey, Jason Weingard is worth the B-list.
The Mastermind B-list. Human C-list.
Yeah.
well.
All right. Is that your full introductory thought?
I'll go into more details later.
Okay. How about you, Brandon?
Well, no, it's not my first time. I mean, I saw this around the time it came out. I think we all passed it around at one point in time. And I thought the art style was kind of striking. It was impressive to me at the time, though oddly enough, I don't find it as impressive now. When we get to the animation, I'm sure that Brittany and I we usually contradict each other on it. I hated the animation, so therefore Brittany will love the animation, right?
No.
No? Oh, we might agree.
No.
Oh.
But again, as a younger man, it wasn't that much younger. I mean, about 10 years ago. It just hit me differently, I guess. I was just cool to see any X-Men property at the time, I guess. It also reflected somewhat more modern, even though the storylines that they were kind of pulling from were about 5 years older than it. But still, it was kind of interesting. An interesting take on it, to be sure. And a very Japanese take, but that's what you expect.
Well, yeah.
They were definitely putting the Japanese thing. But there is one thing I will say, and this is going to be hitting, this is going to hit over and over again, in my opinion. Okay, you want to put a spotlight on Japan. You want to put a spotlight on Japanese mutants. I understand that. So where is Sunfire?
He was mentioned once, wasn't he?
If he was, it was
No. Let's put it this way. X-Men 97 has Sunspot.
Well, Sunspot and Sunfire.
Oh, no, yeah, no. Yeah.
X-Men 97 might have had Sunfire.
Well, I mean, the original X-Men animated had Sunfire at one point.
I mean, he was
at least a glimpse.
Yeah, but
this series, no, we're not going to show the Japanese X-Men.
Well, and we should note that the original series ran for a whole lot more than 12 episodes, and they had time to fit a whole bunch of people in. But yeah, there's more that could be
much better acting cast too.
Well, the series was definitely hoping that it was going to get more episodes. There was no doubt.
They straight up set up a sequel. There's no doubt. It's pretty clear. But okay,
yeah,
so
they followed the movies, and that's what hurt this, I think, a bit more.
A little bit. That setup definitely was a nod to the movie. There's no question. Anyway, was that it for your first run, Brandon?
Indeed.
Okay. So I also knew about this show for some time. Honestly, I can't swear to it at this point that I have seen the other four in this series. I have Wolverine. It's sitting on the shelf.
I've seen Blade.
Yeah, I can't swear to it.
I've seen Wolverine, Iron Man, and X-Men here. And then I think they did another one with the Punisher, but not this group.
Well, Blade was the other one that came out with this group. There were four that came out together. Yeah. And I can't swear to it. I've seen the others. The X-Men, of course, I had to jump on because X-Men. And I think this is one thing that it's one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up, especially because X-Men 97, it just come out. The first couple episodes just came out. I haven't gotten to see it yet, but it seemed like pretty good timing generally.
It's decent.
Yeah.
It upsets me that some of the voice actors have returned, but they don't continue the voice as they had it. The only one that sort of carries her voice as she did was the actress for Storm.
I think there has been a lot that's been said about that. I feel like they really played the accents broadly when the first series ran. And many people see that as one of the shortcomings of the series.
Storm's supposed to be from Africa.
Yeah.
So she's supposed to have, sort of that dialect.
I'm thinking more particularly Gambit and Rogue. But
well, Gambit's and Rogue is just not at all. She's not even trying to be the way she was.
That's like I said. I'm sure that's intentional. It's going to be weird for fans of the old show, though. It's.
They're definitely leaning into the Goblin Queen story, a little bit of Age of Apocalypse.
Let's go say they hit the 80s right there with the with that whole Trial Magneto thing. And it's like right back.
Well, the trial's done. Second episode was the trial.
Yeah, but they were setting that up. They were setting that up at the end of the original series, but it was definitely strange to see it. We're X-Men 97, so we're covering the 80s.
So this is one of the reasons why I said I thought it would be fun to do this because I know that whatever we think about this show, I know we're all a bunch of X-Men fans, and the thing is with these things, you'll never make all the fans happy, no matter what you do or how you do it. You'll never make all the fans happy. We've seen versions where they weren't even trying. X-Men Origins Wolverine comes to mind.
Ironically, the two movies this is right next to.
What's that?
The third X-Men movie and the first Wolverine movie were in between this movie or this series.
I have to check on that. Last Stand definitely came out before this one did. Last Stand was
Wolverine came out in 2011.
What's up?
Wolverine came out in 2011.
Was that 2011?
Yeah.
Really?
Is that the first Wolverine movie?
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
X-Men Origins.
I guarantee you the leaked version that I watched.
Oh, good God. I remember that now.
No, 2009 was X-Men Origins.
Okay.
I think you might be thinking, let me check here. Well, The Wolverine came out in 2013. So this one came out smack in the middle of the first two Wolverine movies. The
Wolverine was okay.
Yeah, it was actually decent. It just wasn't very fun.
No.
But X-Men First Class came out the same year this one did. So,
X-Men First Class was actually a good movie. It rebounded the series. It was a rebound.
So this was sort of its contemporary. It was an opportunity for them to rebrand as well. And so the way I have to look at this one, Brittany, you may be correct that it's a cash grab because you're talking anime, you're talking Sony, you're talking Marvel, all of these together in the same room.
And it was set for G4 release.
There were dollar signs in people's eyes, no question. The fact that maybe they didn't include Sunfire, but they definitely had a mainstream contemporary X-Man who happened to be a cute Japanese schoolgirl at the center of the story. And one thing I will say about this show in its defense is that I am very much a fan of Hisako Ichiki, and I like that she is at the center of the story. I like that. But I have no doubt that there was a marketing decision at play there. No doubt whatsoever. The fact that, as Brittany pointed out, Wolverine's apparently in all four of those series was absolutely a marketing play because Wolverine.
Well, worse, this is the only one that Steve Bloom, the voice of Spike from Cowboy Bebop in the English release, this was the only one he played Wolverine. Now, he played Wolverine in video games and TV shows beforehand. Okay. And after.
He did good.
So,
I thought the voice acting was decent in this.
Right.
It's okay. Part of me didn't like they were just making Halle Berry Storm, who was pretty much just Halle Berry as Storm.
Well, they didn't do that line about the frog with the lightning, though.
Better dialogue.
And Halle Berry did a decent acting job, but it's Halle Berry as Storm.
Yeah, essentially that version, yeah. I think a lot of these some of them did borrow from that. Although, if I'm remembering correctly, at this point in the comics, they had kind of incorporated some of that into the comics version of Storm. Because, they tend to do that.
You want your comics to match what image you've got out there.
Right. Now, most of these are drawn. I think you guys said made several references to this being based on the Grant Morrison run of the comics. Certainly, during the time period that this came out, the art is very anime-y. I think, I don't remember if it was you guys, but I know a lot of people kind of made fun of basically Cyclops being sort of the Bishonen character and some of these others being, again, they clearly played up Hisako as the anime schoolgirl. They definitely, that style is very influenced, but the overall look could be Beast, for example, this is his current look when this series was made, I believe.
Yeah, that was the whole series pulls off of, and I remember this as soon as I saw it. It pulls off of the Grant Morrison New X-Men run, where they introduced a lot of these concepts, the secondary mutations, which is how Beast got his more cat-like look, and how Emma Frost got her diamond skin. They actually had
the Omega forms.
They had her join the X-Men during that time. Even the costumes resemble it, but they're not quite. But they still have the same black and yellow motif.
Yeah.
I mean, Emma was technically part of the X-Men since the mid-90s.
She was brought in for Generation X, and she had kind of a contentious relationship for a while. But I think this was around the time that they started. This probably would have been around the time or a little bit after the time they really hooked her up with Scott.
That was when they had their affair.
Yeah.
And again, when she had developed the diamond powers during the Morrison arc.
Which lasted until Cyclops killed Xavier.
They left out the one piece of the Morrison arc that I thought was cool, which was the school was actually very populated with mutants at the time. And no, we're still at the empty school stage.
No.
Not that they spent much time there. They could have made it a full school and still did this, and because it all takes place in Japan anyway.
I wonder.
No, they couldn't.
I wonder, if we are looking at this cynically, the way Brittany presented, where it's all about the profit. Fewer characters means less money and time spent on animation. Less money and time spent on voice acting, less that they need to pay Marvel for the rights to the characters.
I mean, we see other X-Men, but we don't see them move.
Yes.
We just see a still image.
And we'll get to that one, eventually. But in a sense, I would take devil's advocate. I will say that there is arguably value in a very stripped down story with just a few characters. I don't mind it at all. Where my issue would be, so I guess I'm not sure I really...
Oh, yeah. The U-Men also were main villains in the Morrison run as well.
We'll get to that in a minute. But basically, so my initial impression of this, you get to loop back around to that real quick. My initial impression was disappointing, but okay. I thought the art was interesting. I thought the music was interesting, but you'll never get as iconic as the original X-Men theme. That's just not going to happen. And then the character choice, with one glaring exception, I liked. The glaring exception was the U-Men. I will admit, the end credits scroll where you see the X-Men in still frames fighting Juggernaut, Strife, Mystique, and Magneto. And you're like, it's almost like they're trolling us with the characters that could have been. It's like,
well, I think they intended on having them later.
Well, they clearly, and we'll go ahead and say this, the end of the series obviously and clearly sets up a confrontation with Magneto in season 2. But now we never got season 2. But it's and it could have been that they were teasing a team up between the 4. I don't know how that would work. I can't imagine Strife working with them as, him and Magneto. One of them's going to kill the other one if they tried to work together.
Strife.
But what's that?
Strife was definitely a 90s villain.
Right.
He probably will make a 97 return.
Oh, I'm sure.
They are doing.
Oh, I'd love to see.
Stuff.
I'd love to see an Executioner song plot line with them.
And another interesting character choice with this one, which we'll get to it when we're discussing the the plot. But anyway, so we'll launch into that. Basic setup for this one. This one starts with a big action scene where 4 members of the X-Men, Hank McCoy, aka Beast, Scott Summers, Cyclops, Logan, who I guess has since been named differently, James Howlett or whatever his actual name is, but the Wolverine, and Aurora Monroe, Storm. They are up against their teammate, Jean Grey, who is the Dark Phoenix. They just skip the whole Dark Phoenix story and go straight to the end. And what's up?
It's because they wanted to set up the whole issue with Scott.
Yes.
Even though they really didn't need this part,
Well,
because Scott's whiny enough on his own.
In fairness, Brett Ratner had already butchered the Dark Phoenix story arc just 4 years earlier. So I think they probably figured people don't really want to see this whole thing again, even though they didn't really see it the first time because of how horribly it was done in The Last Stand. But anyway, so they start where Jean is desperately pleading with Scott, please save me, kill me, so that you can save the world, basically. And
the proper Dark Phoenix end.
What's that?
The proper Dark Phoenix ending.
Exactly. And behind her, he sees this shadowy figure that he identifies as the White Queen, Emma Frost. Of course, he forgot his comics. He completely forgot that it is Jason Weingard who was behind it at the get-go. Although Weingard was with the Hellfire. That's an interesting thing about this thing. They never once say the Hellfire Club. They always refer to the Inner Circle.
It's the one thing to understand about this. When Sony and Madhouse got the rights to this, Marvel said, you're free to do whatever to write the story in the background. So yeah, they eliminated the Hellfire Club, which I don't even think Mastermind was ever a member.
He was not one of the Inner Circle. He was a member of the Hellfire Club.
Okay.
But he was not one of the big 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
and it takes out another Japanese character. Because isn't Sebastian Shaw part Japanese?
No, his son Shinobi is Japanese. Yes. Sebastian, I think, is old money, Anglo, whatever. But his son Shinobi, yes, part Japanese. So, yeah, they could have gone that route, And it is interesting, some of the people they bring in as part of the, quote, Inner Circle. I'm
that
like,
was a weird choice. Those are weird choices.
They were weird choices. I mean, Weingard and Emma Frost, perfect. They make perfect sense. I would have expected one of the Shaws, if not both. I would have expected Selene, the Black Queen.
Yeah, I was going to say the Black Queen of all things should have been in there.
Yeah. So.
Well, they just got out of the Dark Phoenix, and Jean would have been the Black Queen of that.
Yeah.
She was, I think, yes.
But they could have brought Selene in after that. It's not like they couldn't. Instead, we had the Liquid Dude and the Spike guy.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not going to lie, I don't remember them from the comics.
I remember Swamp. Or no,
Marsh.
not Swamp. Marsh.
Yeah, you got Marsh and Rat, I guess, was the other one.
I'm sure I've seen them in the comics.
The other one, I guess his name was Neuron.
Yeah, Neuron.
Yeah, which I'll admit, he had a nasty power.
For those that actually are familiar with X-Men, if both of y'all have probably read more comics than I have.
I don't know those.
Were any of them in the Inner Circle of the Hellfire Club?
I couldn't swear to
Never
it.
when I read. But when I read, the Hellfire Club was currently disbanded because they just had the execution of all the Hellfire, or the Hellions.
Most of what I've seen of the Hellfire Club is, again, they are the creme de la creme of society. They are like old money. They're not going to have people that freaky weird in their inner circle. Those are going to be their grunts. Those are going to be the people they dispatch on missions. They're not, you know what I mean? Like, but anyway, it is appropriate that the Hellfire Club is associated with something where Dark Phoenix kicked it off, because after all, they were directly responsible for the Dark Phoenix saga. And most people feel that Uncanny 129, the first appearance of the Hellfire Club, Emma Frost and Kitty Pryde, is informally the first volume of the Dark Phoenix saga. So, yeah, I could see why they did that. But anyway, I thought it was really hilarious that they started the series with killing Jean Grey, just because Jean Grey dying is such a running joke in the comics. And the fact that they actually had her gravestone actually said she will rise again.
Well, in truth, she was the Phoenix at that time,
Yes.
so, you know.
But I have to admit that made me laugh. I was like, so
The Phoenix never works out for the
What's
group. The Phoenix never works out for the X-Men. Every
No.
time it's introduced.
The Phoenix is not a force for good in most cases, that's for sure.
It's. I mean, it shows some good at the beginning, and it always ends up
Yeah.
biting them in the ass really badly.
Well, some have better luck. Well, not luck. Jean had a contentious relationship with it. Rachel Summers and Hope Summers both had much better chance handling it. But
Scott destroyed the
Scott,
X-Men.
oh, well, that was where the Phoenix split into 5. And you had Scott, you had Emma, you had Ilyana and Pyotr Rasputin, and of all friggin' people, Namor. And yeah, giving those 5 the Phoenix, that's a recipe for disaster.
Namor's powerful, I'll give him that.
Yes.
Yeah, but it was Scott in the end as he killed Xavier.
Yes.
And started the new hatred of mutants.
Yeah.
Well, Scott's a dick anyway.
He is.
And in here, he's a whiny emo dick.
But you got to admit, he's still a dick here, so they at least have the characterization right.
Yeah. I don't disagree with their characterizations as they play them. Right. I just wish we had some development.
Well, I do think that they kind of played down Emma's darker nature a lot in this series. Like, they played her as completely reformed, and they definitely
was by the time she rejoined the X-Men.
Yeah, see, I'm not so sure she ever completely reformed. She definitely wasn't as innocent as she's portrayed here. Like,
she's always had a sadistic trait.
By the time that she was in the new X-Men, she was much more, well, not innocent, but she was definitely more on the side of Xavier's team.
Oh, yeah.
And making out with Scott all the time.
Her in now she is partly responsible for him becoming even more of a militant dick than he ever was before. In fact, she's very much responsible for that. But anyway, in this one, they kill off Jean in the first scene, and then we go ahead a year. And we find that Xavier has, for all intents and purposes, shuttered the Institute. He is maintained. I mean, it's his residence. Obviously, he's still there.
Had to save on the animation budget, so he had to shut it.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, they had to save to have a second plane.
Yeah. No, I think someone made the joke about how many. Was it one of you guys about how many?
It was me. I was going on about how much is the tuition at this school that they can have 2 planes that are SR-71s.
Just think how many more they would have had if the school was full of students.
They had Forge out back making them out of milk cartons.
But so anyway, Xavier one day out of the blue, is contacted by a family in Japan whose daughter has gone missing. And he sends out an emergency summons. We see Storm on a cruise where she saves the cruise ship from pirates. And it's probably one of the very few times in the show that we see a mutant being welcomed for the use of their powers. Of course, in fairness, we get very few opportunities for that sort of reaction. So it's, but she gets a summons and obviously is the first to get back. Beast is teaching a lecture at a university where he is demonstrating the intelligence of squids. And I will admit, the way he made the entire class shit themselves when the squids started talking to them was pretty funny. But he gets the call in the middle of class and he's like, I have to take this. Dr. or whatever he called him is going to, I think he called him Dr. Devilfish or something, is going to take over the lesson. Wolverine's about to get on a plane to Madripoor and can't get through the metal detectors for some reason. But, and then, of course, Cyclops is moping at the site of the big battle, doing what he does best, other than being a dick, which is
being an emo.
Yes. And so the others meet up with Xavier. He gives them the skinny, an old friend of mine, their daughter, Hisako, has disappeared. They've asked us to look into it. And he lets them know that there's a weird dead zone over Tohoku. That's basically the whole prefecture. He cannot use Cerebro. And that's very puzzling and disturbing. Not to mention the girl missing. So he wants them to go investigate. They're like, but we're not really the X-Men without Scott, and so of course Wolverine and Storm go to talk to him, and Beast makes a comment of, their history. Why'd you send Wolverine? And he's like, well, that's why I sent Aurora with him, Scott isn't that interested, at least not at first. So they basically leave him with a little bit of a guilt trip and go back. And of course he shows up just in time. They go to Japan, start their investigation, and quickly learn that several people have gone missing. Quite a number over a little while. And they go out looking. And before long, they talk to a guy about another missing kid that they just learned about. And once he learns they're mutants, he turns into a total dick. It turns out that mutants aren't very popular in the area. And then they start getting attacked by these weird robotic things. And Wolverine quickly pegs them as the work of the U-Men. So I know we have had thoughts on the involvement of the U-Men. Mostly I've heard Brittany's thoughts. Brandon, what's your thoughts on them coming into this?
Did the U-Men exist before the Morrison arc?
I have no idea.
I swear he made them up for New X-Men.
I think he made them up.
But I swear that's what they were looking at. I swear what the guys did is they read like the first arc of the New X-Men.
Yeah.
And they said, this is pretty cool. We could Japanese that up. Yeah, we got this. And the U-Men were one of the major villains of that series. Well, that and some of the kids within the school, the mean kids.
Yeah. But, Grant Morrison created them.
Created by Grant Morrison, yes. It first appeared New X-Men Annual 2001.
So everything was about the Morrison. It's kind of funny because I stopped reading X-Men for a while and then picked it up during the Grant Morrison run and then stopped after a few stories because I didn't really care for it. But the U-Men I thought were interesting but stupid at the same time. Because the whole purpose of the U-Men was like, well, we'll gain mutant powers by harvesting their organs. By the way, that doesn't work. Oh, well, we'll do it anyway. And we'll keep trying until it does work.
Well, apparently they hate mutants, and so it doesn't really matter to them how many die in the process, but you know.
So it was interesting. They were a good... I disagree with the fact that they were a bad choice for this storyline.
Yeah.
Because I do think that they worked well as villains for the storyline's main villain, as far as idiots to be manipulated.
The good pawns.
they really did play well as the minor villains because of the story that they ran. Because the main villain's major pawn was, well, harvesting organs, and the U-Men, that's their thing. That's kind of like their deal. So, it made sense.
The main thing that bothered me about them personally is it gets really into body horror, and that's not something I'm a fan of. And they also themselves lacked all that much interest. There was the one dude with the crazy hair and the weird eye who was kind of an interesting character, but the other one, no, it just not at all interesting. And I don't know the U-Men well enough to know how many of them there were or whatever, but surely they could have fit another more interesting one into those scenes.
Friends of Humanity.
What's Actually, they could have had they could have created something uniquely Japanese.
Yeah,
the Japanese are racist. So
I mean, Japan is notoriously racist to other cultures, and so I could easily see them have their own branch of the Friends of Humanity.
Oh yeah.
Actually, you could also have had Silver Samurai and the Hand involved in this. I mean, they would have been, they're mercenaries for hire a lot of the time, so that could be done.
And better known.
True. The other thing with that, sorry, I don't know, my brain fritz. But anyway, so they do make it into the U-Men's lair, where they find the kid from the delivery store. Whatever, I can't words right now, but the kid who disappeared on a delivery. And unfortunately, he has been transformed beyond redemption. And so they end up having to take him down, basically kill him. But he almost had begged them to anyway. And like I said, that was definitely a big body horror scene. That's not my favorite scene. But anyway, they then find a couple of cryopods where they find Hisako. And they also see a familiar face that Scott immediately recognizes as Emma Frost.
That's because he saw a projection of her behind Jean when he's there. So he's ready to just kill her.
He is, yes. And once he tells them who it was, Beast looks like he's almost ready. And Wolverine almost has to be restrained from just coming right out and... and Storm basically is like, look, she may have done something really, really horrible, but do you want to be on her level? Do you want to be a coward? Like, let her, even though waking up a powerful telepath is playing with fire, they, it's the responsible, respectful thing to do, I guess you could say. So they wake both of them up, and the fact that Hisako recognizes Emma and immediately kind of glomps onto her is they realize the two of them know each other and have a bond, and that really gets them to kind of step back a bit. Beast and Storm had also been trying to talk through it logically from the get-go. Wolverine and Cyclops had a little more difficulty with that, of course. But so they come to find out that, whatever her role may have been in Jean's death, right now the priority is saving Hisako. And this is when, I think when other dude attacks, or no, this is when they get attacked by a bunch of the cyborgs, yes? And they end up having this big, what's up?
In the snows.
Yeah. So they end up having this, some battles where they basically... Meanwhile, the main guy's in this room collecting data about the whole thing, like what they can do and how they do it and all that. But then the other guy gets impatient and comes after them himself. And they have another big battle. And this is where Hisako's power manifests. She apparently did it once when she was a kid. And later on in the series, we find out the circumstances. But this is the first time that she hasn't manifested it basically as a young adult, except when they captured her and kind of forced it to flare up for a bit. And she, of course, creates psionic armor. Hence, I will admit, her code name, Armor, is kind of stupid. It's not my favorite code name that any of the X-Men have. They could have done better, I think. But
they were pretty loose on those names at that time.
Some of them were pretty bad, yes. Hers is nowhere near as bad as some of the ones from that time. But it is a cool power. And it didn't really occur to me until I was watching it this time around. But it's almost like she has the ability to create her own mech. And that probably is appropriate for a Japanese character.
Her own neck?
A mech. Like a mech. Yes.
Okay.
In a sense, that's kind of what she does, It's just
Which makes me wonder why they didn't do their version of Spider-Man as one of the 4 choices. Because Japanese live-action Spider-Man had his own mech.
Yeah. Hey, I'll bet you, given the success of the Spider-Verse now, if they were to do a follow-up to this, you could bet Penny Parker would probably show up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was based off of that Spider-Man.
Right. But, so, basically, she not only manifests her power to protect Emma, she kind of tears this guy a new one. She beats the crap out of him. He had an answer for all the others because they had the data, but they didn't have the data on her. And she basically just beat him. Didn't fully get rid of him, though. They save all the other survivors, because who knows how many had been killed over the years. But they save, look like maybe a dozen or so survivors. And but he attacks again. And this is where we see Emma's secondary mutation of diamond, becoming organic diamond, shows up. And then, the human are kind of, they've been whipped.
I mean, after the second confrontation later,
yeah,
they just kind of vanish from the story about halfway through.
Well, it's like I said, they've been kind of whipped, and the one guy takes off, basically. And Beast insists that they go back to New York so that he can test Emma and make sure that she's good, that there's nothing that they need to worry about with her weird mutation that seems to be out of the blue. And Hisako asks to go with them. And so they go back, they run the tests and everything. Meanwhile, on the way back, they're attacked by another weird creature that turns out to be some poor kid that's been totally screwed with. They manage to get him back to the mansion, but he dies on the operating table, basically. And then they kind of things happen among them. They start training Hisako as a junior X-Men. Emma convinces the others to. She basically is like, well, I'll have Charles show you what's in my mind, and so we get a little bit of that. Cyclops finally learns to trust her a little bit, at least, and the others definitely figure out that she's on the up and up. And meanwhile, there's still the puzzle about the dead zone in Japan, the fact that Xavier is trying to get in touch with someone he can't seem to find, and all this kind of stuff. Anyone have any stuff at this point that they're had any thoughts on story-wise, character-wise, what have you?
No, I figure we can keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I'm trying to remember the exact trigger that led to them going back to Japan. What was the exact trigger?
I think somebody asked for. I think it's that one person asked for help.
The institute in Japan asked for their help.
Okay, so they did.
The mutants were disappearing, and they were trying to get under it.
Right. Well, I know Xavier did finally manage to talk to Yui Sasaki again. He had been trying to, and she had contacted him, and there was that what triggered?
They did a retelling of Xavier and Moira McTaggart's relationship.
Yeah, basically, Yui and her son, who, of course, I'm forgetting the name right when we're Takeo.
Takeo
In the anime.
Yui and Takeo are, for all intents and purposes, Moira McTaggart and Kevin McTaggart, aka Proteus, but with a hint of Gabrielle and David Haller.
I was gonna say it reminds me of a combination of all the Xavier children.
Yes,
together.
There are a lot of them. Xavier's a player.
And
dude can roll around.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that makes this storyline just fine in terms of its believability or whatever. The only thing is, it so blatantly rips from those two storylines. And I kind of there's enough differentiation, I think, between the Moira storyline. And Kevin wasn't actually Xavier's kid, if I'm remembering correctly.
No, he wasn't. But they always talked about him as there was always.
Right.
I mean, technically, he was the product of rape, where Moira McTaggart got raped. But there was always that possibility because they always hinted that, well, maybe it actually is his kid.
Well, and of course, with Moira, it gets complicated because they decided later on to give her a really weird power to where basically her whole story comes into question because you're like, well, which version are we talking about?
and you also got to keep in mind that retconning is a thing.
Retconning is absolutely...
just because Proteus might not be Xavier's son now doesn't mean that he won't be.
Well, I mean, are you aware of the power they eventually gave Moira?
No.
They could have called her retcon. she literally has the ability to relive her life. And each time she has the experiences of her past life.
So it's literally one of the animes I've been watching this last month.
Could be. But my understanding is that basically with each life, she got to Xavier earlier and earlier, and she became more and more militant and more I think the whole story arc of like the traditional Moira, I think they said it is like it was her second life, I think, or her third life. So it's like, but now I don't even know with all that retconning what that actually means for those stories. I don't really know. I haven't followed the comics lately, so I just know this about what I've read. So
that would destroy the universe because Moira's the one that studied a lot of the legacy virus and the Phalanx.
Right.
And then
it
on
would
top
have been destroyed.
Of course, then again, they've also, I mean, they retconned, I was reading about the retcon of Nightcrawler's parentage.
Well, that they've done a few times, yes.
And you know, the idea of like Mystique was his mother, now she's his father. It's you know, it's various things. It's like
yeah, it's interesting.
No, your father.
I just look at it like a Mrs. Cartman.
Kurt, I am your father.
It literally is a Mrs. Cartman moment.
But so anyway, Yui, it turns out she had the so-called Sasaki Institute, which was similar to Xavier's, but it wasn't, I guess, limited to mutants. It was, I guess, a haven for all kinds of kids that needed a safe place. And apparently, Hisako was one of the kids there. But we don't figure this out at first. Hisako
has a place to harvest their organs.
Secondly, which again may have been a nod to the retconning of Moira's story, because Moira of old would never have done something like that. But the Moira now, I'm not so sure from what I hear. They also played her in the movies. They tried to introduce her as some sort of secret agent. So maybe that whole idea
they're probably mixing her with Cooper.
Yeah.
Valerie Cooper, yeah.
Which is an X-Men 95, which is kind of cool.
Right.
Cooper's in 97. Playing a larger role.
Okay.
Wrong year. 90s.
Okay. But the now, if I remember correctly, she was the government handler for X Factor, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a minute, but I thought so. So at any rate, and didn't she have a thing with Beast at some point?
I don't know.
I don't know.
She had a thing with a couple of X-Men.
And of course, when it comes to the makeup of this team, it's probably worth noting, of course, Wolverine. I mean, of course.
We should just have
He's in every group.
Yeah, but like Wolverine, Beast, and Storm all have strong ties to the Avengers. Storm was friggin' married to T'Challa at some point. So, you know, they definitely, I think they were angling for the not just X-Men crowd with this choice of mutants.
She had a relationship with Dracula too, but you know.
Yeah, this is.
So there's a dark universe connection.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Hey, they were all zombies once.
And so basically, it's obvious that Yui is hiding something. It's very obvious. It's obvious that something is wrong with Hisako's memory. It's obvious, you know, there's a lot of things that just don't add up quite right. We meet Yui's staff, who she only has 3 people working for her. And yet it looks like she's in this big facility that you would think there'd be more people.
Massive place.
What's that?
Massive place.
Yeah.
And only 3 people to work.
She
Right.
did have more people at one time, but then she realized about the animation budget, so
Yeah.
she had to cut them all loose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the other X-Men.
We can't afford to pay you. Would you like to stay and
Hey,
not
to
get paid?
be fair, we see Deadpool, and they gave him the treatment he got in Origins.
No, this was better because at least it wasn't actively insulting everything. But anyway,
It was just that static picture of Deadpool.
it was the treatment he got in the early scenes. So yes, we'll mention that eventually. But
Captain Britain.
so we have this thing where it turns out that Yui is up to no good. She has supposedly good reasons, and we eventually find out that they are at least reasons one could understand. And again, this is borrowing heavily from the Moira storyline because Proteus was an incredibly powerful mutant who could warp and bend reality and could not fully control his own power. So Moira basically did have him imprisoned on Muir Island, and her own son. Yeah, you could say like there are a couple of other. I could think of 3 mutants in the Marvel Universe, 4 really, one of whom was not insane, but I think 4 of them that could basically have this power to some degree or another. And 3 of them do have ties that come right back to several things shown in this series. Jamie Braddock and Mikhail Rasputin being the other 2 I'm thinking of. Of course, Franklin Richards is the one that isn't insane. But
I was going to say, you got to include Franklin in there.
Right.
And
but,
don't forget Nate Gray.
Well,
Nate can't alter reality, can he?
I don't know. He was
actually
incredibly powerful. But he had a different power set.
Towards the end, he could?
Towards the end, he had different... Because that's the thing. They changed his powers a lot to make him godlike. So
true.
At one point, they did allow him to warp reality around him because he was such a powerful...
When he was introduced, he was just supposed to be like the ultimate psionic ability.
Well, he was Cable or Strife essentially in that universe.
Well, he was Cable untapped.
Yeah. Which was Strife.
Yeah, he was Cable. I've read, and I'm sure y'all have read this too, that Cable apparently actively allows the techno-organic virus to stay in his system to control his powers. I've read that he has to put so much of his powers into keeping that virus in his arm that it makes him able to function on a human level. And he does that intentionally, supposedly.
Oh, it's not just his arm, it's half of his body.
Well, that's you know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
Like, it keeps it from taking over.
Well,
Nate Gray, you're right. Nate Gray is basically Cable without the virus.
Yeah, he doesn't have to keep the virus in check.
Yeah.
Cable does.
Yeah. But the other one that I forgot to mention, but another one whose powers have changed a lot over the years, who has become basically this sort of character, Scarlet Witch.
Sure.
That's a different take on it. Hers were a little bit more tied into magic, a little bit more at least, but still.
Well, a lot more.
Yeah. But at any rate, certainly the MCU's version plays it up as a magical more than a mutant thing, but
they'll get into it.
Yeah.
They're kind of rushing that route now.
What's up?
Because of the issues with trying to remember the villain's name. The one they've been building up, and he got arrested for sexual assault. The actual actor.
I'm drawing a blank.
whatever was the
They were
current
building up to Kang, weren't they?
Kang. Yes, it was Kang. So they can't do Kang anymore.
Oh.
So they're kind of pushing towards Doom being an ultimate bad guy, and also leading into the X-Men storyline.
Doom
So
is a
they'll
great
probably
choice
push
if they do it
Scarlet
right.
that way.
If they do it right this time, they've totally screwed up Doom twice.
They need to make him such an egomaniac.
Yes.
That's the one thing.
Yes. Doom is definitely the ultimate narcissist. That is his superpower.
Narcissism.
Yes. But at any rate, so we find that Yui is behind a virus that Beast had found in the people who had come through the humans workshop, and he had created a antiviral, as they called it, for but apparently her two assistants are taking some other sort of medication that we find out is not as effective as Beast's version. And they
kind
go,
of the opposite.
What's that?
Kind of the opposite.
Yeah, they end up having some really nasty mutations that just they have to be taken down, and they're given the antidote, and of course they get better only to be unceremoniously killed a couple scenes later. But and then the third of the ones, June, ends up getting unmasked by Emma Frost, who we come to find out that when she's a diamond form, she can't use her telepathy, but she also is immune to it. So she finds out that Jason Weingart, the mastermind, is actually the other assistant, June. And, that leads to a nice big confrontation. Lots of stuff happening. I wonder where Brandon got off to. I see he's missing there, but... Oh.
Probably a bathroom.
Hello, Mike McNally. Thanks for joining us, as always.
I didn't see
yeah.
that.
I don't know how to put the comments up on the board, so Brandon will probably do that when he gets here. But
I see him. Okay, I just went to comments. There we go.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, while we're waiting on him, anything you want to throw in for this portion?
Well, I mean, I'll go ahead and touch it. I know we touch animation a little bit later usually, but this had a lot of usage of static imagery.
It did.
I almost want to say more than Ava. And Ava was notorious for it.
I wouldn't say it's as blatant, but maybe.
In the final episode, it is horribly blatant.
Yeah.
They
also reused
so many just panning images.
They definitely reused a few images. And you're right. There were some panned images. There were some straight up static images.
Now, looking on the director's IMDb, he's only directed 8 anime. Basilisk, the beginning, both Afro Samurais, Super Street Fighter 4, I believe, the Marvel anime, and this X-Men anime in that Marvel anime.
Afro Samurai doesn't surprise me, because wasn't that also a Madhouse collaboration with them? Yeah.
And that one is a good example of not a cash out that has American involvement, because it was specifically made for Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
But then Bayonetta
and Human Loss. He has a lot more credits on ANN, but most of them are more as animation.
Yeah. He has a huge animation listing, but his directing is only 8.
Okay.
So he didn't have a wide amount. Afro Samurai, I could see, because I mean that's one of the series he came from to this, and I mean there were some still shots, but the character designs are very similar, and this hyper realism.
Yeah. And really wild, crazy hair for certain characters. Like like Wolverine is a weird sort of shrubbery on his head in this one.
I just don't understand. If you're pairing these four, they're all connected. Why change the voice actor?
That is
maybe
weird.
they just couldn't afford
the original.
What?
I don't know if they did. They do that in the original.
They did it in the other animes. It was another actor instead of Steve Blum.
Right. No, I'm talking about in the Japanese version. It looks like they are all the same actor.
They're all the same. Yeah.
Yeah. It's let's see here. Rikiya Koyama.
It's kind of hard to say original because these were made.
They were simultaneous releases. Yeah. Yeah, I guess, it's that running joke of the original Japanese, But they were co-productions, and they did have a big name. I mean, Aya Hisakawa is Storm in the Japanese version.
Japanese cast is great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm going to watch X-Men or any of the Marvel properties, I'm going to watch it in English because that's where these characters come from.
I did watch it this time around in English. I started rewatching it in Japanese and only got 3 episodes in. I am going to finish that rewatch, and I'm going to finally watch Wolverine here soon. But
Wolverine, as I recall, that was a little bit better.
Okay.
Of a series over the X-Men. Okay. I feel Iron Man was okay. Blade, I don't even recall. Blade.
Right.
Blade was stiff. Actually, to me, the issues that came with the animation in this were twice as bad for Blade.
Ah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Man. Hello, Michael McNally.
We knew you were going to give him a shout out as soon as you got back. But we already did that. We just Brittany went ahead and obviously you came in, you saw we were talking about the animation. So basically, for all intents and purposes, the end game, we come to find out that Mastermind had been pulling the shots. He had the U-Men had been working for Yui, but they'd also been working for Mastermind. He managed to worm his way into the kid's mind, Takeo's mind, and make him go crazy, basically make him lose control. He basically tried to Dark Phoenix Takeo. So essentially, if Mastermind had gotten a hold of Proteus or one of those other reality warping people and just made him completely lose control, that's kind of what happened. Not 100% sure why they portray him as being so hell-bent on world destruction.
He was never that way.
No,
he was always sort of the scammer con artist.
In the Dark Phoenix, he basically portrayed himself in Jean's mind as her lover. And he basically was making her live a life back in the day, like colonial times, in her mind, where he was her dapper lover. But he got some satisfaction out of that. But the main thing was they thought foolishly that they could control her, that the Hellfire Club could control the Phoenix. That's what they thought. They weren't trying to make her go crazy and kill the universe. They thought they could control her.
According to what he said, he was trying to use it to basically rule the world.
Yeah,
and
good luck.
the Phoenix Force just got out of hand. So that was a little bit of a oops. So this was his, I've got this time.
I got this. But yeah. So that was one thing that I thought they did a little. I thought this version of Mastermind was interesting, but it was not. It was, of all the characterizations, it was a little off from the comics compared to the others, I think. But yeah, so they got this thing where, meanwhile, we should mention, Xavier's been trying to get to Japan, and he fell into a mind trap sprung by Mastermind. So he is locked in a fantasy zone for a while.
That's where I started losing it. That's where I started losing it in this anime. Because
It starts falling
it's
through
like
the air for multiple
4 episodes
Yeah.
of him in a plane
Yes.
by himself,
Yes.
technically flying the plane,
Yes.
but not actually flying it. Yet it's in a dive bomb because of this whole psychic thing.
Yeah.
For 4 episodes.
The
Yes.
plane, boss, the plane.
And then he shows up, and I kind of I made the joke when he showed up of Charles Ex Machina. He kind of almost is. They could not face this character alone. There was no way that they were going to beat this character through traditional means. Xavier had an in because he's world's most powerful telepath, and turns out he's the kid's father. And that didn't necessarily make it a positive in where he had an upper, it was more of a contentious one, but technically an in. But we had also found out that Hisako's power, her memory had come back, and she remembered the kid, and she remembered what happened, why she had a mysterious burn on her hand, and all this stuff. And it turns out that they had been friends, that they had both been at the Institute when they were the same age, when they were kids. They were good friends. And the other assholes were bullying Takeo, and she was his one good friend. And he lost it one day and burned the place down, basically. And that was the time that her power had manifested. And the reason why her memory was so wonky was that he had been forced to cut himself out of everyone's memory, basically.
And
So
this is
she
where
had-
this anime really pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because it breaks one of the cardinal rules of anime.
Yeah.
You show, you don't tell. We only get that as a told story. We don't see it.
We see scenes from it, but yeah, it's much of it is told. You are correct. Again, they were probably saving on the animation. But
They could have just done a bunch of illustrations explaining it. It would have been as cheap.
And meanwhile, where the world is hanging in the balance, and Xavier is trying to meet with Takeo. I almost called him David.
He wanted to call him David because David's the more memorable of Xavier's kids.
Yes.
We could even switch him out for Tetsuo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so he while he is trying to talk to Takeo, and Hisako is trying on her own to talk to him, we see scenes around the world. And this is where the aforementioned static shots of people. We see Captain Britain. We see Nightcrawler and Deadpool. Weird pairing there, but And we see Colossus and Rogue. And I got to admit, one of my big complaints of this series is that they show us so much of what might have been. First of all, Nightcrawler is one of my favorites. I love Colossus. I love Rogue. I am one of the few people who was a diehard Excalibur fan. So even Captain Britain is awesome. But A, you going to show Captain Britain and leave Megan out of the picture? How dare you? B, you got Nightcrawler, the fuzzy elf, lifelong friend of Kitty Pryde. You got her ain true love, Colossus, and you got her mortal enemy, Emma Frost, as a central character, and yet Kitty's not in the show either. And I'm like,
maybe the next season. Maybe it was the next season.
But
it's worse. They animated the crowd running.
Yes.
They didn't animate the X-Men.
Yes. And it's like, seriously, you got 5 really cool characters there who are literally just pictures. And it would have been really nice if they gotten a little bit more, just a little more. But and then, like I said, you know, they got those, and yet they have. It's like they were given a gimme to have Kitty, Megan, and hell, Ileana. None of them. And I'm like, you jerks. But anyway, I would have just been disappointed that they were just standing down. So
they did reference Wolverine's Berserker Rage, which is what helped them get out. And
that was kind of cool, actually, where him and Beast are face to face with a guy who can turn any of your senses up to 11 and further. And of course, for someone like Wolverine, whose senses are naturally turned to 11, that's got to be hell on earth. It was bad enough for Beast, you know. And yes, Wolverine finally gets the brainstorm of hit me. He tells Beast, you need to attack me. And the reason being that it will put him in a mindless rage where he can then attack without being in pain. And I thought that was actually kind of a cool little sequence. But anyway, again, I'm not familiar with that character, and I don't really particularly care. That's not a character that has much appeal to me. I just thought he had an interesting power set. But anyway, so of course, between them, Xavier and Hisako managed to get Takeo to let it all go. He basically sacrifices himself just like Jean did. And everything's good. And, you know, that's all. Everyone's safe. Everyone's happy. And then at the end credit scene, we see a prison cell that's been busted out of, and we know that Magneto is going to be around for the next season that we're never going to get.
I'll show him. Just show the chess set and the cell.
Yeah. Which was obviously pulled directly from the movies. I will admit. Now, I will admit, that's a good idea. I thought that was one of the more interesting ideas from the Bryan Singer movies, was the way they imprisoned Magneto. You know, so obviously a nod to that makes sense, you know. And of course, in the movies, he was busted out by Mystique, so given her presence in the end scroll, maybe we can think that she'll be in the next season too. Who knows?
Come on, Juggernaut, man. Juggernaut can get him out of that cage.
Juggernaut does like to break things, and there were a lot of broken things in that image. But anyway, so that's basically the rundown of the plot. I think we've hit all the relevant characters at least a little bit.
There weren't many.
Yeah, there weren't a lot.
I'm looking at the cast, and it really isn't that large.
And then we briefly touched on some of them. We'll just go ahead and mention again. Japanese cast, we have Aya Hisakawa as Storm, Hideyuki Tanaka as Beast, Kaori Yamagata as Emma Frost, Katsunosuke Hori as Professor X, Yukiya Koyama as Wolverine, Toshiyuki Morikawa as Cyclops, Yukari Tamura as Hisako Ichiki, Yurika Hino as Jean Grey, Yoshiko Sakakibara as Yui Sasaki, and Haruhiko Jo as Mastermind. English cast, we're dealing with Ali Hillis as Emma Frost, Cam Clark as Professor X, Danielle Nicolette as Storm, Fred Tatasciore, oh, that's a pretty cool name, as Beast, Jennifer Hale as Jean Grey, Matthew Porter, Cyclops, Stephanie Sheh as Armor.
I want to stop you real quick.
What's up?
Jennifer Hale is now playing Jean Grey in the X-Men 97.
Oh, very cool. Stephen J. Bloom is Wolverine. You mentioned him a few times. Gwendolyn Yale is Yui Sasaki, and Travis Willingham as Mastermind. We got a few other big names. I mean, Michael Sinner Nicholas is pretty well known. He's got a couple small roles in there.
Dean Venture.
Troy Baker. What's up?
Dean Venture.
Yep.
Is Michael Sinner Nicholas.
So, both versions have a pretty good cast. Personally, and I think, Brittany, you might be correct in the whole they're going for Halle Berry idea. But as much as I love Aya Hisakawa as an actress, I do think she's a little miscast as Storm. And I do think the English version is better. Danielle Nicolette, I could see it as a Halle Berry version. I could see that. I think she works, but it's not. But she works better than Hisakawa. Most of the other cast, I actually think, personally, I think it works in English or Japanese. I think most of them, the voice fits the character pretty well.
They do. And
yeah.
I mean, as most of these actors continue to play both X-Men or Avenger characters through multiple other series.
Right.
But like I said, Stephen Bloom constantly has played Wolverine. I think he's even slated to be Wolverine in the upcoming Wolverine video game.
Oh, okay. I know Fred Tatasciore is like a go-to in animation. Like, he is in everything. And like I say, he did a fine job as Beast.
Troy Baker he plays Sublime. Yeah. He's the male lead in Last of Us.
Right.
So
I need to see the Last of Us. I've heard good things.
We have Travis's Mastermind. We also have his wife in the series.
Yeah.
Laura Bailey.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. She is in there. Yeah, so pretty decent voice acting for the most part. We've already touched on the animation a little bit. I will say that it's not my favorite art style I've seen for the X-Men, but I've seen so many art styles for the X-Men. I'd probably rank this probably middle to slightly higher than middle. But
it's appropriate, and they carried this through in all four series.
Yeah.
It's appropriate considering the source material.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But they just seem so stiff.
That's what I was going to ask you. Because to me, it looked... The art style was okay, and as you said, they did the same art style for all four series, and the animation looked just as stiff. But to me, it looked like they used fewer movements. It did not look fluid.
I do have to say, as far as the style of the characters, I wonder if anyone else had this thought. It's just a completely random, goofy, off-the-wall thought, but talking about shows that we've covered on this channel, actually one relatively recently, Xavier reminded me a lot of someone. Anyone guess who it was?
Telly Savalas.
Now, he reminded me a lot of Hayashida from Cromartie High, the dude with the purple hair.
A little bit. This is more. Did they do Helsing and Madhouse?
I believe that was a Madhouse, or at least a co-production.
Yeah, you can definitely see the character design similar.
You can definitely see some Madhouse, some Helsing in this too. I do not doubt that at all.
So, Brittany, do you feel like they cut corners in the animation section of this? Because to me, it did look stiff. I did not feel.
Oh, they did.
I feel like they were a lot better. I've seen a lot better animation.
Considering the studio's doing 4 at one time, they definitely cut animation on all 4, and it was probably because they didn't quite have as much money to do the animation budget.
Right.
And consequently, for those of you who would love to see this, you can get all 4 series in a set for around $23.
I might need to do that one of these days to save some space.
Which I've got that set myself, and it's basically the same disc, it's just in a different package.
Right.
And it's good because it saves space, and it's not bad if you think about it, since you're getting 4 series, essentially. Like I say, I can't speak for Iron Man and Wolverine, even though the Wolverine in that Wolverine show looks very different from this Wolverine.
I can say the Wolverine was probably my favorite out of all of them.
Okay.
But like I said, I didn't see Blade, so I can't speak for that. But I did see Iron Man. I did see X-Men.
Felt differ animation-wise to me.
Apparently, I was mistaken here. Madhouse did do the primary production for episodes 5 to 7 of Hellsing Ultimate, but apparently that was it for Hellsing.
They probably switched out studios because they were releasing them about 1 every 2 years.
Right. Yeah, but you would have thought that they'd have more with that particular series. Of course, another Black Lagoon is another Madhouse one that kind of you could see some of the same influence here. Couple others there, I'm sure. Anyway, so, and we briefly touched on it before, but what are y'all's thoughts on the music in this, overall use of music?
It works.
It does.
It holds together.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that the opening theme of this was boring.
Both weren't that great. I liked the artwork of the ending, but it was just a pan up. That's all it was.
And it was a tease.
Yeah,
tease pan up.
Oh, I forgot. Archangel's also in those final scenes. Okay, that was...
Yeah.
And we see Iron Man briefly.
Because you wanted to do a hookup for the other series.
Okay, so according to IMDb, Marsh and the other dude are original to the show, which makes perfect sense.
Well, see, there you go. That's why I never saw them before.
Yeah. So, and IMDb says exactly what I said. Yui Sasuke is based off Moira McTaggart and Gabrielle Haller. And Takeo is based off Kevin McTaggart and David Haller. Yes. Yep. So, IMDb agrees with me. It's obvious, but still. But, we got this one user. This one user review says, really unsatisfying in all the ways.
I mean, we got a little... You were talking about the body horror. We didn't quite go Junji Ito, which they should have.
No.
If you were going to go body horror, go all the way.
Yeah, go.
They did go a lot further than you would see in an American production, I think, but they could have gone further. I'm kind of glad they didn't, but
Well,
that's
they didn't need to at this
They
point.
didn't.
With the come on, with the cuts they've already done in animation, do you think they'd be doing something like Akira level?
But
That blew the whole budget for all 4 series, right there.
right.
Okay. One to note of Madhouse at the same time they were doing this was Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah.
So
Hunter
that's where the animation was.
Well,
Yeah.
I think this had some potential. It did have some potential, but the problem is they decided to do 4 series at once.
Yeah.
I think if they had just decided to stick with the X-Men and put all of their budget that they put to all 4 series into the one series, up the animation quality, do a little bit more on the writing, they may have managed to make this work better.
Right.
Probably not, but it would have had a better chance. I think they put.
I think choose a better villain too. I mean, it would have done better if it was Silver Samurai or someone more related
I wonder
in the comic series.
I wonder why the reliance on the Grant Morrison stuff, because that had been going out.
Actually, if they wanted to go body horror and incorporate a character with a Japanese connection, I wonder why Lady Deathstrike wasn't part of the
that too.
Thing.
That too. I mean, yeah.
You could have had a Deathstrike team up with Silver Samurai.
Indeed.
And
by that point, movie fans of X-Men had already seen Deathstrike.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Shoot, they could have actually had Sunfire in this. That was the best opportunity. I still say Sunfire was a missed opportunity. The only reason why they didn't
Everybody forgets about Sunfire.
The only reason why they missed this opportunity, in my opinion, is because they really did want to go off of this Morrison arc, which I still don't quite get. But
it makes no sense.
Maybe it's because the Morrison artwork and style matched the movie style more than any of the others. But then just ape the movie style. And you could just do the movie X-Men in animation.
Mm-hmm.
True.
So, anyway, we've got a few. I guess for all intents and purposes, we've gotten through story and plot and production. Does anyone else have anything else they want to bring out before we go into favorites?
No.
Okay. So, let's see here. We want to do what would be what would be your favorite scene, or if it is a line or moment or what have you in the series? And I guess in okay, this could be kind of fun. We'll go ahead and say, what's your favorite character in this one? But then for shits and giggles, let's say you were able to be on the production staff of the next X-Men reboot, and you had to pick a core team of 5. Who would be your core team?
I was going to say,
Brittany.
What mutant powers would you have?
What's that?
I would say, what mutant powers would you give yourself?
Well, okay, that could be a fun one. Let's do that. If you had a mutant power, what would your pick be? So, Brittany, we'll start with you.
Favorite line? I'm going to call Xavier and get the extra plane. Or backup plane. Backup plane.
Right.
Just hearing the words backup plane just
The backup
made me
black
laugh.
You don't have a couple
Favorite
of them sitting around just waiting to be used?
Yeah, apparently. For school. Who knew? Favorite character? Oh. I enjoyed Emma Frost in the 90s, but I hated it when they made her have a relationship with Scott.
Oh.
And they still keep doing it. Scott just keeps dating the psionics of the team.
Yeah.
They got boobs and have mind powers. It's psionic. There's Cyclops.
Yeah. See, he's secretly a masochist, but his masochism is in his mind. He likes being...
But I've also always been a fan, and I'm kind of disappointed that the animations always kind of jipper, and the movies jipper out. Jean. Always been a fan of Jean.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Go with that. Power, probably to just instantly make my work get completed.
Huh.
That would be an amazing power. Productive one, too.
Okay. All right. Brandon, your go.
Let's see here. I'm trying to think here on... Yeah, I think I'll just go with my my original idea for that. So, favorite scene in this, I don't know. maybe the ending. No, I mean, I kind of like some of the battles in it. They all run together. So we'll say the part where Wolverine goes berserker rage. There you go. As far as the superhero team of 5, if I was rebooting it, it would be a terrible. It'll be a terrible run. But I would have my favorite Marvel Comics character, Havoc, be the leader, and then have Deadpool, Psylocke, Wolverine, because Wolverine's got to be in all the teams, and Random to be the muscle.
So basically, you would be doing an X-Force team.
You're kind of a weird hybrid of X-Force and X-Factor. And the
my team, I'll just go with the one they're currently releasing for Wolverine, where Wolverine teams up with himself 5 times over.
Right. Okay. Well, I would say the part that made me laugh the most was where we saw Jean's grave that said she will rise again. But that was sort of a dark humor. And I did kind of like getting to see Armor come into her powers. I kind of liked some of those scenes. I thought they got a little sappy, but they worked. And the scene where Beast left the class to be taught by a squid amused me. And if I had to pick a favorite character in this particular rendition, it would probably be a toss-up between Beast and Hisako. But partly it's because they're 2 of my favorites that were in the show to begin with. Beast is one of my favorites. But I do have to say, this is one thing I meant to say earlier. It's kind of rich. I say this as a Beast fan. It's kind of rich that he got on such a high horse when it came to the evils of science and the way of misusing science. The fact that he just talked down to Yui like she was the worst piece of scum, when we all know Beast has done just as bad.
Hey.
Well,
that was Dark Beast.
He's the villain in one
Dark
of the more
Beast did
recent
worse.
Actually, because the original, this Beast apparently is one of the major villains in one of the more recent X-Men arcs.
Yeah,
So.
Beast has done some nasty, nasty shit lately. So I did think it was kind of rich hearing him talk down to her the way he was. But I still like him well enough in this version. He also wasn't quite as lighthearted and funny as he used to be. But Beast has gotten more serious as time has gone on. But
yeah, it's definitely not Kelsey Grammer Beast.
I admit Kelsey Grammer has the voice for the role, though.
He's perfect. He's perfect for Beast.
Right. As far as if I were rebooting it, I gotta go. Obviously, Kitty Pryde will be on the team. Obviously, Nightcrawler. I got to admit, Brandon is correct. And I think, Brittany, I think you said it before that Marvel is any team in the Marvel universe is contractually obligated to have Wolverine. So I'm going to go with the new Wolverine, Laura X-23. She'll be my Wolverine. I actually do like her as a character anyway.
You mean the new old Wolverine? Because there's newer.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty newer at this point. But so let's see here. So we got Kitty, Nightcrawler, and Laura. And then I got to go with Magic. She's a given. And I got to go with Megan because no one else does. And she needs more love. And if I had any power, I want Megan's power. She is a metamorph, and she is deeply, deeply, deeply tied to nature to the point where she has almost godlike abilities when it comes to nature. So that would be my perfect character. And I really can't believe that she gets overlooked as much as she does. They haven't even come up with a good code name that's stuck for more than a few issues. But at any rate,
I'm going to curse it for you. You get to have all of your team, but the magic that you get is the magic from the Exiles series.
Oh, fuck that bitch.
Wasn't she insane?
You're
insane and psycho. Actually, she was psychopath.
She was. She was. I remember that little meme of her going around killing everything. But anyway, honestly, that's my top 5, only with Wolverine in place of Beast. That's pretty much the and I'd hate to leave Beast out, but you gotta have Wolverine on the team, or you disappoint the kiddies,
That's why I'm glad Wolverine's forming a team of himself. Yeah, and it's canon in the comics.
Just like his old pal Deadpool did years ago. Oh man, I love the poster for their upcoming movie that's like the two halves of a heart.
Yeah. That will be fun.
It's going to be interesting because it's going to be Disney handling Deadpool, and it'll be like, how much of it are they going to reel in?
They did say that they were willing to give it the R.
Now,
so that's impressive
admit,
there.
You can do Deadpool as a soft R. It can be done, but only if you let them do what they need to do. Ryan Reynolds can do it. He was born for that role.
Oh, yeah.
And he loves the character, and that's a good combo, But
well,
anyway, I guess that about does. Anyone have any final thoughts, or are y'all just getting ready to shake this one off your feet and move on to the next?
Move on to the next.
So, of course, before we start moving on to anything else, I did want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. Of course, with Jake and myself, we do run this channel that you're on now, and we've been doing a spotlight series. Well, I have been doing a spotlight series, but we are working, and I've been working on it even now on these role-playing movies, and we are 2 episodes away from finishing our first season of Tabletop Horror, which we are going to debut fairly shortly after it gets done. So that's going to be awesome. And in the link below, you can get a store where I have worked with several people who are all wanting to release, and we all kind of decided we've only got one or two things, so why don't we just be in one store so we can have lots of things in the store. And in that we have my film, Amityville Webcam, which Jake stars in. We also have Kyle's film, the Shekel Demon Project. We have Boris's, or I should say Philippe is his real name, but Boris's disc that he had that ran briefly and now is unlimited. And soon Tales of the Forgotten is going to be on there as well, which will be Dave's anthology film. So Dave is just actually testing out the ones now. So once he's done with it, he'll be able to set a release date, and we'll actually have that up there as well. So it's going to be a pretty large site of stuff in the future. And I'm probably going to try and do a DVD release or Blu-ray release of each season of Tabletop Horror just because. But Brittany, did you have anything else that you want to hawk for us?
Well, we've been away from streaming for the month due to surgery and family loss. But we are returning on the 2nd. We're going to mainly be doing our comic artwork and our live drawings. But the rest of the internet and playing Stardew Valley 1.6. So we'll be doing that starting next week.
Actually, yeah, didn't they did a recent update to Stardew Valley. Even though the guy said he was moving on. Well, I guess not. I want Haunted Chocolatier, darn it.
It's coming, but fun. I mean, he keeps tying in Terraria and Stardew.
Yeah.
So
I want Haunted Chocolatier, and I've never played any of those. But either case,
Stardew's great.
Next for the next quarter, it's all me, which is interesting. Whereas with Jake, his birthday was kind of in the middle. Mine's at the end of it. Whereas Brittany's at the beginning of hers, and Roger's is at the tail end of his. But my theme is going to be anime that have not gotten enough mention. Whether they have been just forgotten or whether they just fell by the wayside. I want to make it sound like, that's anime that really deserve more of a mention. And the first two choices that I have are, but if I go with the third choice I'm thinking of, it would definitely not match that. So next month, we are doing a little series called Servant Service, which was an Aniplex release that went under many people's radar and was dirt cheap. And I admit, it went under my radar because it was dirt cheap. And I was like, well, if Aniplex is selling it for nothing, then it must be horrible.
Well, in fairness, they only ever released it on DVD here, which is why it was so cheap.
It was on Crunchyroll.
I was looking. I mean, release.
I watched it.
I would have bought it in a heartbeat if there was a Blu-ray release, but they never did one. And,
but even then, Aniplex did charge still for. I mean, shoot, Orimo, whatever it was. That DVD was. They charged a lot for that. They charged for them. It's just this one particularly, for some reason, they didn't have a lot of faith in. But which is a shame because it was very, very good. So at least I liked it a lot. Maybe it's one of those that just because I have worked in that kind of field, maybe that's why. But with that, we'll look forward to seeing that next month, hopefully with a Roger in tow this time. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.